Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering Cradle Book 12, Waybound, chapters 25, 26, and 27. In these chapters, Lyndon is still fighting Rhaegon Shen and the Dread Gods. But most importantly, we have our showdown with Malice. And as much as I was hoping things would go one of the surprising ways that seemed unlikely, they don't. They pretty much go how everybody figured they'd go. And it's more of a bummer than I expected. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha. Thank you very much to Andy for commissioning this episode. Andy is here in the chat again. Hello. As well as, looks like about 11 other people. So lovely to have all of you. Thank you so much for joining me. So you guys, you know that I'm going to back up and start at the beginning, but we just got to, I just want to really give Will some props here. Because it would have been very easy to brush aside the effect this is all going to have on Mercy in favor of just giving us a really strong victory moment with Malice. And he really treats the moment of Malice's death as heavy in a way that I wasn't expecting, but I really, really appreciated. And I didn't even know that was what I wanted until it was happening. And sort of, I was waiting for a victory lap kind of feeling. And when it didn't come, I found myself relieved. And I hadn't even picked up on my own fear around that. Being, as the writer, insensitive to a character's feelings. You know what I'm saying? So I'm going to give you guys some specific examples of what I mean when I get there. But I just wanted to really throw some respect there because I went in more worried than I had even thought I was. So let's start off with 25. We're at Ghostwind Hall with Mercy and Zeal, Orthos, and Little Blue. And is Yaren's here? Is she here? I don't even think she's here. This conversation, because what we're having to do is get Mercy to advance to Herald. And, of course, the Grand Oath Array, which controls time, is going to be necessary to give her adequate space to absorb the power that she's going to need. And she is really concerned about being in the Grand Oath Array for as long as she's going to have to be. Dross is saying you will need minimum a month or two. If we are being honest, a year would be ideal. But the thing is, and Zeal had already talked about this with Lyndon, a whole year inside the array would probably drive somebody crazy. And I don't think, y'all can let me know if you disagree, I don't think that has anything to do with magic. I think it's supposed to be a year of complete solitude. You would lose it, right? Solitary confinement is a very, very harsh punishment that is used the way it is for a reason. And you can crack. I mean, it's hard for me to imagine, honestly, because I am, even as isolated as I am with being a work from home person, I still have access to so much in terms of just the phone or recordings like this or my husband at home. that the idea of like being without any stimulus of any kind, I really truly cannot picture it. I can't imagine it at all. So Zeal says, look, we can start small and just go with a week. But the thing is, every time I stop and start, it's going to really strain the array. And once we start to get going, we're going to need to go in chunks to reach a year, like several months at a time. I can't do a week, give you a break, a week, give you a break. That's not possible. And Mercy has to do like this moment of, can I fucking do this? And decides, yeah, I can. Lyndon would do it. I can do it. So she starts with a week and goes in and is absorbing all of this power and information. Now, I am not going to go too in depth on everything that she absorbs, because in the end, I don't think a lot of this is necessarily going to be specifically important. But I did appreciate getting to hear exactly how this worked. So eventually she comes out and asks how long, and it was 6 months. And Dross says that he didn't think she was going to make it, and without him, she probably wouldn't have. That was her third session, each longer than the last. And I love this moment. She's looking around and thinking about how her mom would just be like, thank you for your assistance, and just act like it was nothing. And she decides she's just going to be fucking real about it, and she falls into Orthos's arms and sobs and is just like, that was fucking horrible. I hated it. Which, he has no idea how to react, is hugely uncomfortable. And also, for all of them, it's been a few hours, so it's very hard for them to quite grasp what she's been through, you know? And this reminded me, there's a Black Mirror episode in which somebody is in a space where external time is controlled by somebody else. And I don't remember the title of the episode, but yeah, this was really reminding me of that. It really, really was. So then she's like, all right, I think I'm as prepared as I can. Let's get ready for me to confront my remnant in one of the sparring rooms. And Zeal, you probably should reinforce it. Now, I meant to bring this up a couple episodes ago, and I forgot. But Mercy had said before about watching her mother's, rise to Harold and how awful it was. And that Harold almost killed her and she almost killed it. And when she said that, my immediate thought was, this just sounds like a Red Faith problem. If you are a douchebag asshole, your spirit will be too. And then you have to fucking fight each other. I don't see this being a problem for you, Mercy. I just don't. The only thing that I could think was potentially a slightly different twist on the situation with Malice. Red Faith was so certain of his own approach and superiority, and that was what his Blood Shadow inherited, so that they would not work together because they were each so certain of their own position. The only thing that I thought might be different with Malice was that we know Malice's echoes in the labyrinth are of somebody who was a lot more generous, heroic, and ethical, it seems like, than the Malice that we know now. And so I thought maybe her spirit, her remnant, retained some of those ideals, and that Malice herself was attempting to deceive herself about her own motives. And so maybe she fought with her remnant because her remnant disagreed with what she was aiming for now. Her remnant could see the fact that Malice was turning into somebody that was the antithesis of what she had set out to be. And it wasn't until this scene where she explains that the remnant is torturing random bystanders that I was like, oh, okay, it doesn't sound like that. Because in the situation I describe, the remnant would be a better person, so to speak, than Malice herself was. But it doesn't sound like it had any compunctions whatsoever. So, yeah, this whole thing, like, Mercy is going into this so afraid. And even Zeal is like, look, I get what your mom's deal was, but do you really think that's something you need to worry about? And she says, her power is mine now. And I was like, I mean, yeah, but that's not the same thing, Mercy. Like, that's not the same, her power, not her spirit. That's not, that's not the same thing. So I was just really like, I was not surprised that she was worried, but I was totally unsurprised at the manifestation of her remnant and what it looks like. This is so funny, you guys. So, unlike Yaren's Blood Shadow, this wasn't a perfect copy of Mercy. It didn't resemble her mother's remnant either, except in color. Malice's had been a razor-edged creature of spider limbs with 3 mouths. I just want to pause here and reflect on how fucking hideous that is. I don't know how you see a remnant of yourself like that and not immediately stop and just reevaluate yourself. If your remnant looks like a hideous nightmare monster with 3 mouths, which I think indicates greed, I don't see how you don't pump the brakes and go, ooh, actually, I am not loving that about myself. Like, yikes. This looked like Mercy made in Shadow Madra, but shorter and softer, more rounded. It wasn't entirely black either, but highlighted with shades of purple. Its large eyes and wide smile were bright to the point of being called violet, and its hair streamed behind it like drifting shadow. The thought struck Mercy as wrong, but it was almost cute. So this is chibi Mercy. Like, for sure. 100%. I adore this so much. I've had a bunch of people in the chat. I'm sorry, guys. I missed some of this. B. Moore is saying Mercy parts of the book are strongest to me. Compared with virtually every other sacred artist, Mercy's advancement is a joke. Her compassion and desire to help is so fundamental it permeates down to her soul. She only wants power to help others. Yeah, exactly. Emmett Shard says, I adore Mercy and her character so much I've rambled here and on Discord about her a bunch. Remnants are so fascinating, honestly. They really, really are. This is something that, like, you know how they make those, like, online fucking quizzes? A quiz that designs your remnant for you, it would have to be a very advanced kind of, like, setup, because you would need a wide variety of factors to contribute to what a thing looked like. But it would be really interesting to try and set something like that up and have it just automatically, like, design for you based on certain answers to questions and the way that you prioritize different, like, aspects of your personality or moralities, all of that playing into a design. I just think that'd be really, really interesting. So I am unsurprised by this. And of course, Mercy is like, well, maybe this is just trying to trick me. And I'm like, girl, again, this is you. Does that sound like you? And her remnant says, oh, whatever I can do to help. You're going to do something hard. It makes you sad. I want to help you. Thank you. Don't give up, Mercy. We'll do this together. And it just flows into her. And boom. It's done. Mercy could feel herself changing. But not very much. And everybody looks at her. She comes out and she's like, well, I made it after all of this prep and psyching herself out. They're like, yeah, this is what we thought, but okay. So then we go to Malice. And she's looking at different potential futures, waiting for her daughter, and intends to really lay it on Mercy how pissed she is as soon as she arrives. And Mercy doesn't fall to her knees immediately, the way that Malice had expected. So Malice tries to force the issue a little with pressure, and she only goes down to one knee. But then says, "Will you speak to me for a moment? Will you help us defeat the dread gods?" And lifts her head and looks at her, and Malice is like, "Oh, damn. I haven't seen you like this. Good for you. I'm almost proud of you, except that it's me that you're fucking up against, so I don't care for that. But I'm impressed." And Malice, this conversation is really, it's so good at tricking you into thinking maybe there's a shot, you know? So this moment, I love this. Mercy says, "The world is bad, but we can make it better. The world was better before all this." And Mercy says, "Better for who?" Malice was tired of all this back and forth. I love that. She doesn't have an answer. Notice that. As soon as it's a question that she doesn't like what her response would be, she decides that she's just not going to engage with it at all. And then this whole, "You think I want to leave the dread gods around? You think I like risking my life?" I want you guys to really pay attention to this. "You think I like risking my life to push them away whenever they act up for the sake of golds who don't even know who I am? I hate them. But this is the world, Mercy. Wake up." She doesn't say, "Do you think I like the damage that they do?" She isn't saying any of this in the context of giving a single flying fuck about anybody. She is mad that she doesn't get the credit for defending people from a fucking problem she created. The fucking gall of this is so unbelievable. You know, like, I just truly, and what kills me is, like, this is the exact thing that gets me about philanthropy and people sucking the dicks of the extremely rich who make donations. It's like, if you weren't insistent as a CEO that your profits increase by 7% every year, no matter what, and took into account the fact that there are human lives suffering and not able to make it because you need your profits, then nobody would need the philanthropy in the first place because they'd be fucking provided for. So you're out here creating poverty, but then you throw, $1 million at some fucking charity for a fucking tax write-off. And then you get to have a plaque and a wing of a hospital named after you and get your dick sucked some fucking more. And for fucking what? You didn't do anything except create misery and then try to get a fucking cookie for ameliorating a tiny fraction of it. Go to hell forever. I just cannot. It is so gross. It makes me so enraged. I just ugh. You think I like risking my life to push them away whenever they wouldn't be here? You don't have to be here either, bitch. Go. That's all anybody wants is for you to fucking leave. Get out of here. We don't want to hear you fucking whining about it anymore. Okay? Pack your bags. Problem solved. But no. Oh my God, I wanted to slap her in the face. Look at my dog. He's over here like, Mom, why are you so upset? It's because of the billionaires, sweetie. I'm so sorry to bother you about it. I know. You would never. I know that you would share your treats with anybody who wanted some except for your brother. Good boy. Oh, yes. I was clapping my hands, and that's what I do when I call him, so I think that he mistook that for a summons. He's so good, you guys. I get myself into such a tizzy, and then he shows up, and I'm like, oh, right, there's right in the world. There is good in the world, Mr. Frodo. Oh, but you're Samwise, aren't you? Yes, you are. Okay, I'm sorry. I have to return to the business at hand. Min says, so we think Malice would have changed if she saw her memories like Northstrider. I was sort of wondering about that, and I'm assuming they all agreed it was impossible to, like, try that. Sam, sir. To try that out, because in order to get her to see them, she has to be at the labyrinth, and she's not going to go there. Right? So, because I did have a moment of like, why didn't we just try that again? But I think that she would simply not agree to go to a place where she would be outmatched like that. So it makes sense. I wish there was another way to do it, because she does use the remember thing on Mercy, and I wish there was a way to inflict that back on her. But I don't know. She is so good at convincing herself, and so is Northstrider, and it still got through to him. I don't know. I really don't. I like to think so, but I don't believe, even if she did come to the labyrinth, that she would have allowed herself to see those memories. Northstrider tried to destroy it, and Lyndon caught it. I think Malice would have done something successful to, like, completely keep that from happening. So let's see. Min says charity is an insult to society. It should not exist. Exactly. Correct. And McShard says, but also she's honestly so parasitic and feels exactly like a CEO bastard writing off her taxes for doing a sliver of the bare minimum. The Onarchs are absolutely analogous to billionaires, 100%. Megan says they don't have Lyndon to create the echo. Oh, I forgot that he has to, like, command. That's right. I keep thinking you could just, like, go into the fucking labyrinth and press the echo button. That's not how that works. Min says, on second thought, it would never work. Her remnant shows her true nature, unlike Northstrider, who fights for justice but got corrupted. That's interesting. I don't remember what Northstrider's remnant looked like. Do y'all remember? I know that it had a very dragonish quality, and that's why his eyes transformed. But I can't remember otherwise what it looked like. But anyway, yeah. So this, like, the way that she frames this, once she starts arguing and the way she argues, that was when I was like, oh shit, this is just not going to work. Like, I really thought maybe, especially because as this is happening, Mercy says, all right, look, I'm going to say it. Everybody wants to. Nobody will. Everybody's afraid of you, but I'm going to fucking say it. You sound evil. Listen to yourself. And to her credit, Malice takes a step back and starts laughing. And that was when I was sort of like, oh shit, is there still a chance? Like, that monologue felt like there wasn't, but maybe there is. And when she laughs, Malice is not even, like, kind of begrudging about it. She's thinking how good it feels to laugh, you know? But Mercy pushes her suit here. We should leave. The whole family can come with us. We don't want to fight you. And this was the part where I really was like, okay, that's it then. When she says, we don't want to fight you, even Lyndon doesn't. He wanted me to come here and resolve things peacefully. It says, of course he did. He might be able to crush her with raw strength, but that didn't mean she couldn't do some damage first. Power only became leverage when you knew how to use it. And that was when I was like, wow, she really doesn't get it. He doesn't want to not fight you because of the damage you could do. He doesn't want to fight you because he cares about your daughter and it will hurt her if something happens to you. But she can't fucking comprehend. She doesn't think that way. She simply can't grasp having compassion like that. It's never a factor for her. And that was the moment where all hope flew out the window. And she says, tell your friends to ascend instead. And Mercy says, I can't do that. I can't leave when I could have helped. Whatever you've come to think of me, however you remember me, know that I truly believe this. The world is best as it is, and I will sacrifice anything to keep it that way. A burst of silver heart madra and an answering flare of red from Yeren told Malice her contingency plan had begun. And I was like, certain we were in for some different kind of shit from that moment. But then it turns out, likely they were waiting for a decisive answer like that before they did what they were going to do. Malice is saying, I'm taking most of your friends prisoner. Yeren won't let you capture her. That's right. And she sees the tears in Mercy's eyes and feels sympathy for her because once again she thinks Mercy is crying on behalf of her friends. That was your last chance, Mother. I wish you'd taken it. What? The future warped around Malice. She found herself once again in the world of night, looking into the future. What had once been an insignificant, flickering shadow now loomed large, an obstacle standing in her way. An owl. And Mercy says, we're ready, Aunt Charity. And shit begins to pop off, and Malice basically is like, wow, Charity, when did you start plotting against me? To which Charity is like, girl, I don't want to do this. You think I want to turn against you? You're a fucking psychopath, bitch. I was trying to be loyal to the family, and you made that impossible because you're not loyal to the family. So to be loyal to the family, I got to turn against you because you don't give a shit about us anymore as much as you're trying to pretend that's what this is all about. You can lie to yourself. We're not idiots. We can see what this is really about. And then begins the fight. And, you guys, this fucking ends with the line, if it cost her some rebellious children, that was a cheap price to pay. And truly, when you're saying, it's cool if a couple of my children die just so that I can keep my reputation, and you don't see how lost as a person you are, that for me is a wrap. That's a wrap on that. So we go then to chapter 26, where we're back with Rhaegon Shen and Lyndon. And I gotta say, as much as I am very invested in Lyndon versus the Dread Gods versus Rhaegon Shen, I was very pissed to be pulled away from Malice and company at that moment. I really, really did not want to be here. But I understand this is how stories work. Whatever. So we have basically Lyndon pushing himself so hard. This fight lasts like 2 days, I think, at least. And he is really trying to keep Rhaegon Shen from joining in the fight. And Rhaegon is, for his part, noticing how Lyndon is watching him and wants to jump in, but is like, oh, I really don't want him to see this, though, because Lyndon is holding his own against the Dread Gods. He's matching them. So he is at a level now where Rhaegon is not entirely sure he's going to be able to come out of this. And what's happening is that the fight is slowly inching its way closer and closer to the Rose Gold continent, his territory. So he's starting to get a little bit more twitchy about them continuing things at the level they are fighting at and wanting to move in another direction and thinking that maybe he can tell the Dread Gods to leave his territory alone. But they do not care. And he calls on Miara, first of all, Shah Miara, and sends her a message like, I need your help with redirecting them. But she's a distance away, so she's not going to immediately be able to show up. So then he tries to direct a complaint basically to the Bleeding Phoenix, we need to take the battle north. And she's like, why? That's just a waste of energy to change course. We're grinding him down. It's working. And he says, that's my territory. And she says, I mean, once the Weeping Dragon is back, it's going to be his territory, and he's not going to care. And that's it. The bubble popped, splattering blood madra all over Rhaegon Shen's face. That is so disrespectful. I lived for it. Not only just, nobody cares, but the fact that it just basically like spits at him at the end. Truly, wow. Very humiliating. And this is when Rhaegon Shen loses his patience a little bit. So we go into Lyndon's head, and Dross is like, ooh, something is going on because Rhaegon Shen is pissed off, so watch out for him. And Lyndon is like, God damn it, I can deal with him, but I just really do not want to do this right now. And Rhaegon Shen tries to open a portal. Lyndon orders it to close, and it just does, crushes. One of the Phoenix's techniques slammed into Lyndon from above. It launched him into the sea like a falling star, and water from the impact blasted into the clouds. Before he could collect himself, the Titan was stomping a foot down on him. This is just too big a fight, you guys. My brain can't wrap itself around what's happening and imagine what it looks like. I have to recontextualize everything to like a puddle. You know, it's just not... it's too big. It's too big. So he uses an empty palm here. And I appreciate that it's like reminded that Lee Markuth was the first person he ever like really tried to use it on in a sincere way. Like he used it against the father of that bloodthirsty little girl. That was so good. But, that was just a kind of sparring thing. This was a real fight, and Lee Markuth literally slapped him in half, which is truly a moment I will never forget. So, he finally feels Shamiara show up. And this is when Dross starts to be like, oh boy, if she throws in with him, and they really coordinate, that's a wrap for us. That's going to be it. And the whole, like, the way that things go with his fight directly with Rhaegon Shen here, they wouldn't be evenly matched if his attention wasn't being taken up with the others at the same time. I'm not going to get into the blow by blow with the two of them, but suffice to say, once Shamiara turns up, they're thinking she's going to throw in and fight, but instead, Rhaegon Shen turns back into his human form because he turned into a lion temporarily for the sheer power, but he turns back into human form to join her. And it seems like maybe they're going to bail, potentially. The whole turning back into a lion thing, I really want to like see this on screen. I'm having trouble imagining him fighting as a lion, you know? A lot of this, it's just the sort of thing that I have trouble mentally putting a picture together. Oh, sorry guys, there's a bunch of stuff in the chat that I missed. Emon says, in the blurb about Malice's story, it said she defied her name and fought to preserve humanity instead of pure revenge. She just sniffed her own farts too long. Oh my god. And kept justifying more and more extremes. I'm Bored says, nah, her remnant was downright evil, and that was before she overstayed her welcome. MX Shard says, Monarchs being an irritating distraction from the real fight is a crazy place to be, and I'm here for it for Lyndon. Yeah, that's true. That is true. Min says, I love how monarchs are treated like scrubs in this story. It's such a great subversion and fitting for how petty and small they are in the multiverse. Agree. So we go back to Yaren here, and she is fighting Malice and realizing, I thought I knew what this bitch was capable of. And I was still underestimating her a little bit. Like, she really is on a level that I was not prepared for. And Malice starts targeting Little Blue. And that's really when Yaren begins to have a fucking problem. And this fight, it's going back and forth. And Yaren is using the Bleeding Phoenix technique thing. And it doesn't quite like hit the way that she intended. And Malice, when she goes after Little Blue, she has zeroed in on her a few times, and everybody has jumped in to sort of deflect things and help out. But eventually, Malice pulls out a bunch of different constructs, and Dross doesn't know what to do because he's able to help them with like plans of attack using models that he has created off of information that he has. These constructs were created, very likely specified to each of their abilities and what their weak spots are. And she kept them secret. So he has no idea what they're capable of. And Yaren is thinking like, God, this is exactly the sort of thing Lyndon probably would have done too. So this is the Phoenix song ran through her. Dross showed her how the Phantom would move and Yaren tore it apart. The first slash didn't destroy the construct, so she went with another, then another, and another. And then she uses the Moonlight Bridge and shows up right in front of Malice. And she says, I need more. And Dross builds a report and basically is like, you are going to need to fight better than you ever have in your life. All of it, every time that I create like different angles of attack, it comes down to you being faster and smarter than you've been. I'm sorry, that's what it's about. And we go back to the present after that kind of slowdown. And she starts to, the way that everything crystallizes for her is Little Blue gets hit and thrown by an arrow. And Yaren, because of her senses, she's thrown like miles away by this hit. But Yaren can still see it and feel it. The intensity of the pain that Little Blue is in. And all of a sudden remembers that her, like, the advancement that requires an insight, she remembers it being that she doesn't want to be alone anymore. That she is so desperately afraid of losing people she loves to death. And that being such a motivating factor makes sense. Seeing Blue hurt like this begins to completely change the way that she's looking at things, because she's known in an abstract way everybody's lives are at risk. But I think she has felt like we have a chance until she really saw how close it came for Little Blue at that moment. And as she begins to zero in on Mercy, or on Malice here, she starts to manifest the sword icon, which, because she's at Herald, if she's also hitting an icon, that pulls her into Monarch territory, which is not what she wants, because the whole point is to get the Monarchs out of here. But it's like really difficult to get it to disperse. And also, it's starting to feel like maybe I can't win unless I advance. I don't really know how else to do this. And then we have a moment that I just loved. Her Overlord revelation. She was not the Sword Sage. Yaren wasn't just the disciple of the Sage of the Endless Sword. She was also Ethan's apprentice, the student of the Reaper. She had used penance, the absolute decree of death, to strike down a monarch. She had learned to imitate Osriel's sword strike, and she remembered her Archlord revelation. It wasn't to fight monsters. Yaren was meant to kill them. In that silent world, Yaren looked to Malice and saw a monster. And she manifests the death icon and says, die, and brings down her sword. I'm going to tell you why I love this so much. Because y'all know that when Yaren wins the Uncrowned King tournament, a lot of people had something to say because they fully expected Lyndon, the hero of the stories, to be the winner of the tournament, because that's how stories work a lot of the time. And I was really pleased that Yaren's innate fighting ability was given the center stage it deserved. Lyndon is a marvel, don't get me wrong, and a very hard worker. But Lyndon excels in the type of fighting that leans on planning. That's like really what he's very good at. And he uses devices and things a lot of the time. And that's not to say that he leans on them as a crutch at all. But at the time, he just didn't have some of that sheer power that he now has because of his advancement and his, Dread God stuff, all of that. I just didn't believe that him winning made sense. Yaren is a fighter with real elegance and has been described by everybody who knows sword fighting and has seen her as a complete and total prodigy. Lyndon is a good fighter, but that's not exactly his strong point. His strong point is his sheer force of will. And that's very specific, So the fact is that I think a lot of us probably expected, if anybody was going to manifest an icon so close to the one that Osriel uses, we all figured it would be Lyndon, because that's, again, how things usually work. Lyndon is Ethan's replacement. That's kind of what we're seeing in our heads. We're like, oh, he'll replace the Reaper. And I am not saying that's necessarily where we're going for Yaren exactly either. Not exactly. But the fact that she was imitating Ethan's stance and stuff, Osriel's stance, however you want to fucking say it, I don't feel that I completely thought that through and realized that meant likely it was her. And I think that that's kind of dope. Lyndon has his place that he serves, but it's just different. And I really did have a tropey, predictable model in my head of how things were going to go and where everybody was going to end up. And I just didn't think it would be this way. So I'm really into it, Amhan says Lyndon isn't a fighter, he's a cheater. Yaren revels in the fight. Lyndon wants to win and he'll do whatever it takes. And that's exactly it. It's part of what's so amazing about him just stealing power from people. And why Northstrider was so pissy about it, even though he does the exact same thing. It's one thing to do it, and it's another thing to have it done to you. But it is a hell of a shortcut that he found. And it works for him, and it makes him really strong. But he brute forces his way through fights. He isn't... I picture Yaren as a dancer. And Lyndon as a boxer. And Yaren will cut you into 20 different pieces before you even really realize she's pulled her weapon. Lyndon will beat your fucking head in. You end up dead either way. But in one of those ways, it's just feels a lot more... I keep using the word elegant, but that's what I think, So anyway, I just really love this, and I didn't see it coming, even though I fucking should have, because I am very dense. So we go then to Mercy's point of view, and she feels the moment where Yeren manifests this scythe, and Mercy is like, whoa, she's advancing. And Yeren's attack would work. That's it, Dross said. I know, Mercy replied sadly. The same idea had occurred to her at the same time. She knew how to beat her mother. But there was no time for that. Little Blue's spirit was fading. And Zeal manages to head over to stabilize her. And Mercy is like, all right, as long as I can keep the fucking constructs from fucking with him while he works on that, I'll do it. And let's see, here it is. We have the fights with constructs, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to get into all of that. But she pulls out the last penance arrow. And Dross is like, you know you're not strong enough to use the Silent King bow, right? Like, you can't. And she says, no, I know. And she pulls out Sue. And is feeling a lot of, like, grief here. Because not only is she killing her mom, but using the arrow on this bow will destroy the bow. And the bow is like a kind of a friend at this point, you know? But then she feels this eagerness from Sue. Sue wanted this to test itself against its maker. If this was to be its last action, the weapon exulted in its purpose. And just as Mercy is about to pull and release, Malice commands her to remember. I love this moment so much. Mercy remembers all these beautiful moments and starts to waver and says, help me, Dross. And Dross says, oh, I am. I've found it's better not to oppose a monarch's working directly. It's more effective to make it work for you. And so he helps her remember also all of the shit her mother has pulled. The ways that she has humiliated Mercy, the ways that she has lied and manipulated her, the betrayals, all of that. And I just love this so much because I did have a moment of like, as soon as her mom says, remember, I wanted to be like, yeah, remember, not what she wants you to. And I love that Dross is like, oh, we're going there, don't worry. Malice had become a poison, harming the very people she set out to save. Strength returned to Mercy. She pulled the string back and she loosed penance. No matter what, she did not want to do this. The attack gouged a hole in her heart. But when all other options had been exhausted, when all that was left in life was suffering, sometimes death was the only solution left. There was no joy in this attack, but it was mercy. And it strikes. Malice's spirit trembles and doesn't vanish. Akura Malice was dead, but she hadn't stopped moving yet. So she begins to fall from the sky, and Mercy is flying to her to try and catch her. And Yeren steps into her way. Take a rest, Mercy. Mercy blubbered something. She wasn't even sure what. You can put that weight down, Yeren replied. Wasn't you that did it. Hey! Pin this one to my account, all right? I can carry it. True and certain. The remnant. You can lean that on me too. And Charity comes and gathers her up, whispers for Mercy to veil herself. Mercy did, so she didn't sense anything when her mother died. She did, however, see the color vanish from the world for just a moment. Then a dim purple light that must have been the remnant rising. She tried to turn around for battle, but Aunt Charity held on. Finally, after a few more sounds, everything went quiet. that moment, I just love it. She falls from the sky, and instead of us like being with anybody else, we're with Mercy, who is purposely kept away from Malice in those final moments because her friends know it's too much. She's already been asked to do more than she should have been asked to do. Needing to be the one to kill your mother, like, that sucks. That's unreasonable. It had to be the way it had to be, but it didn't need to be this way. Malice made it this way. And I really love that everybody tried so hard to protect Mercy as much as they could, despite the fact that she needed to be the one to pull the trigger, so to speak. I just really appreciated this and the depth of her sadness here, despite knowing she needs to do this. It's heavy, man. It really, really is. So then we go to Lyndon, and he feels Yaren advance and is just like, God damn it. And, is thinking about the fact that since he is in a position where he maybe can't ascend, but she has to, like, this isn't ideal. And then Malice dies, and he can feel that. +1, -1. Everything evens out. That's what Dross says. So they're fighting. Day ran on into night. In the few scattered seconds he had to think, Lyndon wondered where Yaren had gone. He'd expected her to join the fight, but hours continued to pass as the earth and sky quaked, and she never arrived. I told her not to come here. We can still hang on. Lyndon would have expected Yaren to show up anyway. She might not be able to fight the dread gods like he could, but she could at least keep Rhaegon Shen off his back. So this is when Miara shows up. Shen, drops the attack and immediately heads over to her. And Lyndon is thinking about the fact that, I don't want to fuck up Rhaegon Shen's territory either. And I don't think he understands that I am on his side in that respect. He just doesn't really get that. But they wind up trampling his entire territory. It doesn't, And the 8-man empire arrives. I like this line. Larian shouted something to him, probably a quip about being late to the party. So then we go to Emrys, and it says she had connection to only 2 icons, the Oracle icon and the Life icon. A greater number of icons did not indicate power. It only increased versatility. Emrys preferred depth. So, what she does is much better for helping other people. And she's with Zeal, and he's trying to manifest his remnant. And he's having trouble. And I am thinking he may be having trouble, because once we see his remnant, it is not what he expected, and he doesn't like it. This is interesting. So, okay. She is looking at the fact that Zeal is a little bit unbalanced because of how fast he has progressed forward, and that Lyndon's just been shoving him full of power to help with it, and it has kind of worked, but it is a little bit risky. And since they're intending that they're just going to ascend after this fight, it's probably enough. But she's like, I think we should do something else. So she tells Zeal to see himself and wants him to just understand the remnant better. So it takes shape in front of him. I love this, that he's surprised. Emrys was not shocked. Zeal's remnant was a hulking, horned creature with much longer horns than Zeal himself had. Its deep green body pulsed with violent energy. Its thick jaw was locked in a perpetual expression of rage, and its hands were massive fists. Even so, it slumped onto the ground, staring at nothing. How am I supposed to get that thing to cooperate? That thing is you. The remnant let out a heavy breath. And I really enjoy that moment because it makes me think of when my dogs get irritated and just go, And she can see that he isn't liking what he is looking at. Yeah, Zeal. The thing is, dude, you have let your rage stymie you into complete inaction. Y'all remember what he said to Orthos about, like, eventually just shutting yourself off so that you don't have to feel it anymore? And Orthos trying to advise him, like, that's not, that's not good, actually, right? And Zeal did not want to hear it. And Zeal is finally seeing how he has gotten in his own way. You know, if it hadn't been for being prodded and dragged throughout all of this, he wouldn't have been a part of it at all. If they had, like, let him have his way, he would have just let himself die, probably. You know, it just feels like every move he has ever made was forced out of him. The only thing that got him at all going was confronting the Sage of Calling Storms and the Weeping Dragon. And that roused him some, because I think it gave him hope, like, there is a way past this. But otherwise, he has really had no internal motivation other than this, like, sad anger. And I really wonder, can you change your remnant? Can he, like, develop other parts of his personality that would make it look different when it manifests? I don't know how that would work, but I'm assuming if he's going to absorb it, it's kind of a moot point. It's just really, it's like, it's a bummer to see, and it's a bummer to, like, we've known this about him for a time, and he's only catching up with us, you know? And it just, again, makes me wonder so much what my remnant would look like. I really, really don't know. So Mercy is with Yaren and Little Blue. And let's see, just snapped into place for me. I don't know how many other words I need to say it. But you had a connection to the icon already. You used penance and you've been working on Ethan's attack. I don't know. Gotta be something personal to you, doesn't it? Sorry, not trying to cut you deeper. And this is when Emrys comes in, and I love Little Blue, like, hiding her hands behind her back. And Emrys looking at her like, yeah, you're really not supposed to be doing this. You nearly died and you should definitely be healing. Like, I had trouble healing you, and you need to take it easy. So, let's see. Oh, here it is, yeah. Let's say I could keep Miara under control while the Empire contained Rhaegon. That would leave you and Lyndon against the Dread Gods together. Can you handle the Bleeding Phoenix? Better than Lyndon fighting 1-on-2. Is it? Yaren knew it wasn't. And that's why she hadn't left yet. Emrys could see her thoughts hanging around her head like a shifting cloud. Not only would Yaren's arrival not shift the scales in Lyndon's favor, it might accomplish the opposite. The Dread Gods wouldn't hold back their attacks as they had for Rhaegon Shen, so just getting close to the battle would put Yaren's life in jeopardy. Lyndon would have to fight while watching out for her. If they were going to join the battle, it needed to be with a group that could actually take on at least one of the empowered Dread Gods. So Emrys herself is just like, I know that you didn't want to advance to Monarch, but at this point, we need Monarchs. So he can hold on just a bit longer, but we gotta fucking start doing this. And Yaren keeps suggesting to Mercy that the bow icon is the one she's closest to, but Emrys can sense that's not the one she is feeling right now. And she has a connection to the joy icon, but she's fucking grieving. So reaching that isn't exactly an easy task at the moment. And Emrys says, Yaren, Go help Zeal. I'm going to help her. In the meantime, Emerus could speak to Akura Mercy about what it meant to bring joy. And I love this because, again, we keep having things like people in this group sort of fulfilling goals that Ethan wanted to fulfill. Lyndon has a group that he is doggedly bringing with him. He is not doing this alone. And that was what Ethan wanted in the end. He wanted companions and partners. And Lyndon is doing that. And then we have Yaren, and she's fighting monsters and continuing on with like the manifestation of the death icon in a way that is for the good of people. And now Mercy, manifesting a joy icon, hopefully. And I really wonder what it's going to look like. I really, really wonder. I mean, if it looked like her little chibi self, I wouldn't be mad. And I could see even the situation with Zeal and his rage and anger kind of bringing him to a standstill. That doesn't not sound like Osriel in a way. He basically like completely went MIA because he was so enraged at the way the Abaddon were handling things. And just like let shit go to hell while he was gone. And he had a good goal. I get what he was doing, but like it was deeply irresponsible. I mean, I kind of see that with him and Zeal being paralleled a little bit. Orthos and Little Blue, I can't put them in there. Their situation does not feel the same to me. But maybe there are some parallels there I haven't seen yet. But anyway, so that is the end of the chapter. I'm over time as usual. But considering this was 3 chapters instead of the 2 of the last few, I feel pretty good about it. It's a lot of, action that I didn't have to go beat by beat through. So probably saved some time. Let's see what the next section is going to be. 28-29. Only 2 chapters again. Oh my God, you guys, though. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's it. That's it. That's it. Oh my God, really? There's only 4 more episodes? Oh my God. We're so close to the end. Oh my God. Wait, no. That's right. There's only 4 more, and then I have like a wrap-up episode. That's right. Okay, cool. Anyway, but if anybody's reading along with me, 28 and 29, if you are reading along with me, I'm so sorry. It's painful, isn't it? You have my sympathies, but also I applaud your willpower, and so would Lyndon. All right, everybody, until next time, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.